You're listening to the Uptown Girls podcast. I'm your host, Martina Barley. Let's talk. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Uptown Girls podcast. We have today the one, the only Alex Shattuck with us. Say hello. Introduce yourself.
Hey, happy to be here. Super excited. I don't know really what I'm getting into. I know this is a new podcast, so it's I'm more anxious and excited for this one than any other podcast I've done. So happy to hang out with you for the next half hour or so.
Good. Well, I'm glad you said that. Like, I have not given you literally anything we're going to talk about. And I think that you speak so often. You do podcasts, but you also speak on behalf of your company. You speak at conferences. You just are constantly speaking. And a lot of it is about the same thing or similar things or similar themes. So to give everybody a little background on Al is an insurance agent. He has 3 very successful insurance agencies in Michigan. He also was a Marine, fought in Iraq. Very, very impressive. And you recently, 2021, started a recruiting company. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yep. So you, to me, and probably to a lot of people, are like an elite business person, right? Like, you have all the structure, the discipline. It's not easy to have all of those. Plus, you are married and you have 4 kids. So you are just constantly moving, constantly going, never have really a second to probably think about anything but all of your different responsibilities. So what I want to do, I do want to give everybody a little background about you, your history, how you got into insurance, how you got into recruiting. But then I want to kind of, because you're so inhuman to me, I want to bring out more of your relatable side that I know is there. And I think that probably a lot of people that hear you speak just see this like amazing elite business person that it's almost, you're so good that it seems unattainable. So I want to just bring a little bit more of your human side out for people. So to start us off, tell us a little bit about the Marines. Tell us how you went from that to insurance. Tell us how you went from insurance to recruiting. Yeah.
Rewind back to the Marine Corps days. As I transitioned out of my time in the Marine Corps, I was wrapping up school, and I was actually going to school for criminal justice. I thought I was going to be a cop. I was an infantry guy in the Marine Corps. And so there's only so many things that translates to into the real world, or so I thought back then. So I thought, well, I guess I'll be a cop, right? I go from kicking in doors in Fallujah, maybe I'll kick in some doors here in Lansing, Michigan. And I was approached by a friend of mine, actually a friend's father that coached me in sports growing up. He's a State Farm agent here in Lansing, and asked me about insurance. And it actually took 2 different conversations before I even realized that he was recruiting me. I didn't feel that I was qualified to do this. I told him, hey, I don't have a degree in business. I don't have a degree in insurance. In fact, I don't have a degree at all yet. And when I do, it's going to be in criminal justice. I'm not qualified to do what you do, what you're asking of me. And he said, you don't need all that. And he explained the licensing process. And that was the first time I realized that maybe I could do this thing called insurance. And so decided to jump in, and very thankful that I did, and very grateful for the opportunity he presented to me. I worked for as a team member for about 2.5 to 3 years, and then transitioned into the agency role myself and took over an office, and then opened up a second, and then eventually took over a third. So that's how I went from Marine Corps to insurance. And then as far as the insurance into the recruiting space, I feel that initial moment and conversations that I had with that agent opened my eyes to for him to find someone that maybe others would overlook, that turned out really good for him and his business. It was a really eye-opening experience for me as an agent, because I took that same approach to my agency with recruiting. I made it a process for me to always recruit every single day. I always put it on my list of things to do. And I gave people opportunities that maybe others were overlooking, and I still do that today. And it's worked extremely well for me. And so through the success of the agencies, I started getting calls from agents across the country as to, what are you doing? And everything that I was doing was dialed, could come back to the fact that I had really good team members throughout those years. And And I had really good team members throughout those years because of my consistent recruiting process. And so I started speaking on the topic of recruiting and coaching agents on the topic of recruiting. And even though that was great, and I think a lot of agents really appreciated that, the feedback I kept getting was I'd rather pay somebody to do it. And so I thought, well, maybe I could train somebody to do what I've done for my agencies for a decade and have them do that for agents. And so I brought on one recruiter. I trained her to do what I've done and had her do that for other agents. And then it just started to build and grow from there. And so we went from one recruiter and a handful of agents to about 150 recruiters and over 1,700 agents across the country, every state, every market, all within the last 2 years. So it's been a ton of fun.
That is like crazy, crazy scaling. Like, why do you think you were able to scale it so fast? And I think something else that's just, to me, seems beyond intimidating is most of your employees work remote, right? You don't get to get them all in an office and have a big meeting together. You can't see what kind of mood they're in all day long. So remote management or leadership to me has just always seemed crazy difficult. But how did you not only get the business to be successful, but get it to grow so quickly and efficiently?
Yeah. So as far as the success goes, what we do isn't overly complicated. It's consistent. And that's the key to our success. Recruiting itself, before COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID has always been a major pain point. And so when I look at business opportunities, I ask myself, is this a pain? Is this a pain point or not? Because if it's you think about what a vitamin is versus a painkiller, right? If you have a lot of pain and you have a painkiller, you're going to take that painkiller to alleviate that pain. But if you have vitamins, you may or may not take those things. You're not going to feel it whether or not you take that vitamin or not. And so I don't want to create a business that's a vitamin. I want to create a business that's a painkiller that's going to solve a serious problem. And recruiting has been and will continuously be one of those problems. And so the growth, I feel, is just the fact that the pain was so strong for so many at that time and continues to be that way. Now, there's a difference between finding a pain point and having an idea to solve the pain point and then being able to actually grow it and scale it. The main way I was able to do that is, I'm a heck of a recruiter. Humbly, we'll say I'm a good recruiter. So I'm good at recruiting people to do the jobs I need done. So we're able to have the personnel there to allow us to grow and scale with the demand that we had. But when it comes to managing and leading, especially remote teams, but really any teams at scale, I did the same thing we did in the Marine Corps. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I was a squad leader, so I had 12 Marines underneath me. But I didn't have to go to all 12 Marines at any one time to roll out the plan or whatever we were doing that day. I would go to my 3 fire team leaders and say, hey, this is what we're doing. And then they would go to their fire teams of 3 and they would roll out the plan. And so that's how it worked down at the squad level. But above that, there's the platoon, there's the company, there's the battalion. And so at any one point, one leader isn't leading more than a handful of people at any one time. And so as we started to grow and scale Autopilot, I realized pretty quickly I can't lead and manage just 10, 15, 20 people when it comes to the daily activities they have to do and the accountability and even just being there for them as a leader. I can't get to know personally 20 people and know what's going on in their life, when their birthdays are, what their kids' names are, but I can have teams with leaders in each team that can develop those relationships with those individuals. And so every single person on my team has someone they directly report to that they have a relationship with, a relationship that I just don't have the capacity to have with them. So that's how we manage and lead from afar.
You make it sound so easy. You know what I think the difference is? And I don't care what anyone has to say about this. I think this is fact. I think that being a male, you have less emotion with people, because to me, I'm thinking all these people, how am I not going to get involved in their drama and get upset when they disappoint me? Where do you feel? Because I know you're a really good boss. My best friend works for you and she says, could go on and on about what a great boss you are. So how do you kind of walk the line? Because for me, I have 10 girls and I struggle with getting too emotionally invested in every single employee. So how do you kind of balance, I'm a good boss and I care about you, with I'm not going to get over invested in every single employee to the point where it stresses me out?
You mentioned me, your words, not mine, not being human in some ways, and maybe what I M or half is unattainable. And I think that that's flawed, right? I mean, I think that when you're on a podcast, it's kind of like social media. People get on a podcast and they present their best selves. They talk about their best processes and their successes, and then you get put up on this pedestal. But the reality is, every single one of us struggle in a lot of different ways that people don't necessarily see. And I don't try to come off as any one way, but I know that sometimes is the perception. But no, I emotionally get involved, and things impact me just the same as they impact you. Whether the female male thing is there a different? I'm sure there is, maybe to a certain extent. But my team, out of the 150, about 99% of them are all female. But when it comes down to how do I deal with that? First off, I don't have the capacity to even if I wanted to be emotionally connected with all 150, I don't have that option. I don't have enough time in the day. And I make it very crystal clear as to what their leaders are responsible for, what I'm responsible for. So I do have a core group that I do need to lead and have a daily or at least weekly interaction with to understand what's going on in their world, both business and sometimes outside of that. Your friend Naima being one of them, right? And so, and she's one of a handful that I am extremely close with, that I speak to very consistently. And when there's something going on in their world, personally or professionally, that isn't good, and it impacts them in a negative way, that is 100% still impacting me in a negative way. And so to say that I can just brush that off as a man or as a business leader, I would be lying. That this stuff impacts me. That I would say that the things that keep me up at night the most, when I have those nights, it's relationships, right? It's how are the people depending on me feeling about the opportunity I've provided to them? What's going on in their world that I can control in a positive way, and what are those things that I can't control? And so, I don't think I'm immune to the things that you feel with the young women that you lead. Hopefully that answers your question there. But again, going back to the volume of people, even if I wanted to, I couldn't. But I am constantly reminding people that I'm also pretty candid in my approach when people reach out to me about things that are quite frankly not for me to discuss. I have to protect my time. So if it's a customer, and if there's a customer service issue or just a quality control issue, I pass that along to my quality control director. I don't get involved in that in most cases. If a recruiter comes to me with something that their team leader or squad leader or director could have handled, I remind them of that and say, hey, this thing right here, this isn't for me. Why don't you start with your team leader? And even though that sometimes comes off as cold, I wouldn't be able to accomplish what I need to accomplish throughout the day if I were to put out little fires throughout the day. So I explained to them why it solves the problem.
Yeah. Not only did you answer it very well, you also bring me to what is my next point. I want to talk more about some of the things that stress you out, some of the things that keep you up at night. I know you said relationships are a big part. What do you think is, because I know that you're very disciplined, what do you think is one of your bad habits in business?
Oh man, bad habits. I think maybe taking things more personal than I should, and I know you feel me on this. You created something special, Martina, with your company. I've always admired what you've done and the team that you've built and continuously built and added to and developed. But when you start something that's yours, it's impossible for me, at least, to not take certain things personal. So, which is exactly why I don't get involved in quality control, because when a customer says, "Hey, your business sucks," what I hear is, "You suck."
You suck.
And my response is, "Okay." Right. And they're going to get that response from me as if even though that's not what they said. And so I'm learning to have thicker skin. But I'm also learning that I'm not doing a great job at having thicker skin. So I need to remove certain things from me that will negatively impact me. I don't typically check my emails in the morning, because I hate opening an email that isn't a positive one and starting my morning off that way. And that backfired on me earlier this week. If I'm going to record a podcast or speak virtually or speak somewhere in person, I keep my phone away, I keep my emails away, because the last thing I want to do is get a text or an email with bad news right before I go on stage. It's impossible for me to respond and speak the same way. So I don't have thick skin. People say that they do. I don't. That's one
I
thing.
don't either, so I understand. So you do speak a lot. Talk to me a little bit about, do you ever get nervous speaking? Probably not anymore, but when you first started, I mean, you're speaking to huge groups. Does it not ever make you nervous anymore?
I'm nervous every single time I take the stage. Every single time. You know, there are some people that can just like flip the switch. You know, they can go from, they can be on a phone call or speaking virtually or coaching a group over here, and then 2 minutes later be on stage and be outstanding. I'm not that way. I need, when I speak, it kills my whole day because I need hours to prepare myself mentally for that and prepare what I'm going to say. I'll go through, it's somewhat scripted. I will practice, I will repeat, I will listen to prior engagements I will watch myself, listen to myself speak like I used to watch myself play football on film. So I'll watch myself on film, critique what I did well and critique what I did wrong, and work to get better from that experience. So to answer your question, yeah, I get nervous every single time because I care about it, especially I'm being paid to speak. People are showing up and they could have been anywhere that day and they're sitting there listening to me. And if I don't come out and give them value, shame on me for not taking it seriously. And I've seen that a lot where I've shown up to a conference and the speaker is just terrible, or the speaker does nothing but sell their product from stage for 6 minutes. And that's not what they sign up for typically. So I do my best to bring value, and I do put some stress on myself in that capacity. But yeah, every single time I'm nervous to a certain extent. I went to speech therapy as a kid. So
really,
this whole speaking thing, yeah, I can say a lot of different words and I still mumble sometimes when I speak. I have to really focus to communicate in a clear way, or I get mumbly and I talk really fast. When I speak down south, I'm often told to slow down. But yeah, speech therapy as a kid, you know? So
look at that.
That's me.
What frustrates you? What just makes you like so frustrated you need to like take a second?
Oh man, how much time you got? What we got? Half hour left. I would say whether it be team members or players that I coach, youth sports, or my own children, or whatever. It's when there's something that's communicated to them. Maybe it's a task or an ask or part of their job or role or whatever, and it's been clearly laid out as to why and how, and it's a choice to do it, and then they choose not to do it. If I were to say, hey Martina, I want you to sell 10 products, whatever today, and you sold 9, you know, it doesn't mean you chose to not sell 10. But if I said, hey Martina, like make 15 calls, you know, in attempt to sell this amount of product or whatever, and you made 5 calls, no, that was a choice. You chose not to do that. And so that's where I get frustrated, is when people fail to do activities that were explained to them, that were very clear, that were a choice. So a lot of the goals that I set for my team, regardless whether it's the insurance team or the recruiting team, it's typically activity-based that are choices, not necessarily results. And so I want to drive the activities I want to set goals around activities that drive results. Because when someone chooses not to do it, that's a really easy conversation. If they fail to sell something, there's a lot of really good excuses why they didn't sell something. But if they simply choose to not take action, when it's a choice, that's a whole other beast. That's really easy to coach to and hold people accountable to, but it's also very frustrating when that happens.
Yeah. I'm actually glad you brought up your kids, because one of the other questions I had, and I asked this to a bunch of agents years ago, and now that I'm a little bit more on this road myself, do you think it's harder being a parent or managing employees? So is it harder to manage your own kids or employees?
It's comparable, but I would say it's harder to manage employees because there's only so much you can do to incentivize them or, you know, mentor or lead them in a certain direction. They also can, you have to get it right more consistently. As a parent, you want to do a great job parenting every single day, right? You want to bat 1,000. Any parent will tell you, including yourself, that does not happen. You have bad days. But when you're leading people that have a choice to stay on your team and do a good job for you, and you're batting far from 1,000 with the way you're working with them and encouraging them and coaching them, that can lead to, you know, turnover, which will cost you a lot of money and those things too. So it's I'm not saying that the loyalty factor is better in either one category, but if your kids are discouraged with who their parents are, they're stuck, you know, and you get to live to fight another day as a parent, as an employer, as a leader in the business world, and you fail to lead them in the way that they feel is adequate. They don't have to stick with you. They can, in a heartbeat, find a different boss, different leader, different opportunity, and you'll be left with whoever you have left.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you have 4 kids, a wife, 3 insurance agencies, and a massive recruiting company. How do you divide your time? How do you decide? Because at some point, somebody's getting the short end of the stick on certain days, right?
Wow.
So how do you make the decisions of where to spend your time? When do you, break up the routine of that if need be? How do you balance all of that?
I think it's always being evaluated. I think that going back to certain days you win, certain days you lose as a parent, as a leader. I don't get it right often, and I think that over the years, a lot of times, unfortunately, those that are left with what's left of me is the family. I've done a better job of that, I believe, in the last, 6 months to 12 months. But one way to combat that is making sure, again, everybody on your team has a leader they can turn to on a daily basis. So if I don't have a physical presence in any one location or any one part of my world for a handful of days, whoever's left there holding down the fort isn't looking around for, well, who's leading me right now? I make sure that everybody at that level has somebody to turn to, so they're not feeling like they're not getting what they need out of me because they're getting it from somebody else. Now, as a father, I can't do that. I can't say, well, I'm going to delegate out this role of dad. I'm going to go hire that out. I can't hire out that. So I've been trying my best to do a better job of making sure I'm playing that role in a major way. Same thing as a husband. You want to make sure that's not delegated out if you can control that, of course. So, so working on that, a couple things that I've done personally is I've been saying no to a heck of a lot more. I get paid to speak. I've turned away, tens of thousands of dollars in speaking fees, this fall, just because the things I'd be saying no to back home, quite frankly, are more important to me than that extra money right now in this point in my life. So, and that's hard to do when you come from a background that didn't have any money. It's really hard to say no to something, but, looking forward to the next stage of life, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, my kids will be out of the house in less than a decade. I don't think I'll regret that decision. So that's what I've been doing.
What's your morning routine? What time do you get up? What's the whole routine from when you wake up to when you get to wherever you land for the day?
You know what? I used to be so regimented, like the whole 4:30, 5 a.m. wake up call, gym by this time, this by that time. And then COVID hit and it changed everything. That first week or two into the lockdown with COVID, I still did that. I'm like, well, I'm going to get before 30. I'm going to get, and then all of a sudden I realized what am I doing? There's nowhere to go.
What's this for?
There's nothing to do. So it was, and then just learning more about my body and how I optimize myself physically every day. If I go to bed at 9, sure, 5 a.m., 4:30 a.m. is a perfectly acceptable wake up time. If I go to bed at 11:30 because I was watching a movie with my family, and then I try to get up at 4:30 because Jocko or someone else said to do that, I'm not at my best that day. And so I fight like hell to get 8 hours of sleep every single night, and no less than 7, but 7 to 8, I'm good. So I go to bed at a decent time. I'm usually up 6, or so. It's rare that I make it past 7, but usually in that 5:30 to 6:45 range, I'll wake up, and if I can help it, do it naturally without an alarm. I'm going to structure my day differently every single day based off of what I have going on. We had this schedule today. I had another call that I had to record on Zoom at 8 a.m. So, I've been kind of doing my thing here all morning long. I'll get my workout in just after lunch. I have another call at noon, and then I'll go and do my workout. I'll coach football here this afternoon. So during COVID, I built a gym, built a full gym, sauna, cold plunge, the whole thing. I know your husband wants to see final photos of that. We talked about that a while ago. I'll make sure I maybe send that over today. So I don't have to drive anywhere. I just do that here. And there's no excuses when you don't have to commute anywhere. But so my morning routine, it varies, but there's certain things that I do throughout the day that don't change, just changes when I do it. And one of those things is every single day I'm moving my body in some way, shape, or form. If I don't do that, you mentioned like the frustrations of things that get to me. If I don't spend that time by myself doing those things, I'm not at my best. If I don't sleep good, if I'm not moving my body throughout the day, that's going to impact me. It's going to impact my business. It's going to impact my ability to spend quality time with my family. And so I don't negotiate that. That is blocked out every single day.
Very nice. I know you don't drink. When/how do you let loose? Like, what are you doing when you're like, wow, I'm really like letting loose and relaxing right now and I feel great?
It's a good question. I don't drink. You're right. I used to, and I had a hell of a lot of fun doing it. I don't miss it. I can promise you that. And it's been 7 years, and I had to relearn some things. I think that there is a perception sometimes that because I don't drink, that I'm not having fun around people that are drinking. You know, a lot of times we'll be all hanging out, carrying on, and having a good time, and someone will be like, "Dude, you must be miserable." Saying, what makes you think I'm miserable? You know, I'm usually having a good time. So a lot of the things that I used to do while intoxicated, I've learned to do not intoxicated. So the one thing that I can't fully engage in sober, I want nothing to do with dancing. You know, if I'm at a wedding reception, this is 2010, open bar, like I'm on the dance floor. 2023, not on the dance floor. I am just off the side watching. Just can't quite get comfortable with moving my body sober. Outside of that, I really learned to do everything else. Again, working out's a big one for me. It's not really letting loose, but again, it's just kind of like...
working out is not letting loose.
Okay. I guess mowing the lawn is a poor option to share too. That's my other like me time thing. Mowing the lawn, working out, going on long walks outside. And that sounds so boring. I spend a lot of time with my kids. I coach my kids in some sports. I go to all their events as long as I'm in town, which is most of the time. And it's not exactly letting loose, but, and so I'm struggling right now with this question because letting loose, I mean, I think that the question is like, hey, if you're not getting drugged and letting loose, like what is your way of getting drugged and letting loose? And I guess I don't know if there's a good answer to that.
Yeah, I guess I meant like, do you ever like, well, if you're not drinking, I was going to say, do you ever like get high and like eat a huge plate of nachos or like just go off the rails in some other way? But I don't think you do.
Oh, if I did, I wouldn't admit to it on this podcast right now. But the reality is no. I mean, I didn't go from not drinking to then like dabbling in other things. Right. I don't do drugs. I haven't gotten high and eaten nachos probably since college or before maybe. But so no, I don't know. I mean, I don't have the urge to do that. You know, and I don't think that has to be part of our lives. You know, I think that it's normal to let loose. I don't think it's like a requirement to find happiness and peace in this world. I don't think you have to get high and eat nachos or get drunk and make mistakes on the dance floor like I used to at wedding receptions. So.
You're just happy mowing the lawn, and I think that's a great thing. I mean, it's great for your kids, it's great for your wife, it's great for your team. It's like, it's ideal, you know?
I love, I like to hunt too. That's not exactly letting loose, but I like to hunt a little bit.
Yeah. Do you think that you feel more passion for insurance or for recruiting? And I know recruiting is part of insurance, but try to separate them a little bit.
Yeah, well, before you just said separate them, I would say like they're so intermixed, right? I mean, I think that, but in both situations, the end result is we're helping more people in more ways, right? Which is the goal. With insurance, you want to help as many people as you can, protect the things that matter most for them, keep them from running into the unexpected situations that devastate them financially. That's what we do as insurance professionals. And I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate about finding people that can do that on my behalf and scaling that so we can have more impact in our communities that we serve and beyond. The insurance side or the recruiting side of things does the exact same thing, but it also allows me to do it at a higher level. So with what we do, serving over 1,700 insurance agents across the country, if you think about, we hire hundreds and hundreds of team members every single month. So think about that impact. When I hire one or two people for my insurance agencies and that positive impact that it has on people in their future and their finances or whatever, when I'm somewhat responsible for hiring hundreds of people across the country to go out and fulfill and accomplish that same mission, man, the impact is huge. But ultimately, it's the same result. It's just way more impact. So I'm not going to say I'm more passionate about recruiting or more passionate about insurance. And I know it's dodging the question for a little bit. I'm just preparing for my political run here in a few years. They're too intermingled to say, hey, I'm all in on insurance. I'm kind of half in on recruiting. The better I am at each one, the more positive impacts I could have throughout our country, which is an awesome thing. I love that.
I wish you would run for president. But no, I think that was a really, really thoughtful answer. And it actually connected them in ways that I didn't even really realize they were connected. If you had a day completely to yourself, no one else is around, no one else is available, you're unable to work at all, what do you do?
And you're saying like kids are gone, wife's gone too.
Wife's gone. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna just naturally wake up whenever my body tells me to. Go for drink some coffee, hang around, get around, maybe read a little bit, go for a walk outside. Then I'm gonna work out really, really hard and sit in a sauna, jump with a cold plunge, rinse off, then go get a massage. I'm gonna get like a good 90 minute massage. And then again from there, mow the lawn, of course. If it's hunting season, maybe spend some time in the woods too. But I wouldn't be 100% satisfied if I couldn't like backfill that remaining time with working with somebody with some relationship of mine that I want to spend, nurture, right? So whether it be time with my wife, time with my kids, time with, the team that I lead that's directly reporting to me, spending some time with my grandparents or my parents, I think that needs to be part of that day to be fully happy with that day. But yeah, everything else I mentioned, like selfishly for myself, like I'm doing all of that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually the same way. I would never want a day all to myself. I would have to be with somebody in some way. I would just go crazy if I was completely alone all day. So obviously this is mainly marketing podcast, marketing and sales. Give everybody in any industry. So doesn't have to be an insurance agent, doesn't have to be anything in recruiting. Give us one marketing tip and one sales tip.
Okay. So with the marketing piece, I'll give you a couple. First off, and this is also kind of hand in hand with sales, but if you're trying to market something or sell something, you have to be really loud about it, right? So the whole world should know what you do and why you do it. And so if it's recruiting, you want the whole world to know that you're recruiting, that you're hiring, and exactly what you're looking for. You want to broadcast that to the masses. If you're an insurance agent, you want the whole world to know that you sell insurance and this is what you sell and why you sell it. And the more people you can make aware, and so going back to the marketing piece, I have a realtor friend, and what he told me was the goal for a realtor, and he said it came from some book or something, is to make sure when you have 150 people in your world, that when they think about buying or selling a house, they think of you, right? So think about that. At any one time, if you're a realtor, out of those 150 people, someone's going to be looking to buy or sell at any one point. And if you're the first name that comes to mind when that happens, you're always getting work. And if you can bring that into the insurance world, if you have 150 or more people that when they get that bad claims experience or when they get that rate increase and they think, I'm going to shop around, if you can get 150 plus people to think about your name first, and so they reach out and they text you or they message you on social media or whatever, you're going to always get some work, right? And so from a marketing standpoint, be extremely aggressive and transparent in what you do, why you do it. Sales, as far as one tip with sales, I think that, there's data that shows that people buy off emotion more so than data and those things. So it's okay to have a really great understanding of the product, have some data to throw at them. But at the end of the day, I think building relationships with people is ultimately what's going to make you successful in the sales role. And Martina, you guys at Uptown, you all do that so well. That's why you've all been successful. That's why you all have stood out above a lot of the competition, is because of the relationships that you bring to the table. Because when we sell something, whether it's insurance or our marketing offer or whatever, there's a lot of competition out there and there's a lot of choices. And sometimes there's not even huge differences in the value in the product. Sometimes there is, but sometimes it's not either very clear or just non-existent in some cases. And so when you can build a relationship, that's huge, not just to sell the product, but also to retain that customer for a very long time. It's easy to cancel Uptown Marketing. It's very hard to cancel Martina. Totally different thing. And I say that to my recruiters. It's easy to cancel Autopilot Recruiting. It is extremely hard to cancel Kim. It's hard to cancel Autumn. It's hard to cancel Becca. So build that relationship, make them your friend, and they'll be a long-term customer.
I love that. That's like one of my favorite sales tips ever, because I totally agree. So last question, give us some general advice, because really you have it all. You have great family, multiple businesses. What is a tip for having it all and being happy and successful?
I don't know if I'm or anybody's that qualified to answer that question. You know, I think it goes back to the perception, you know, of who I am versus who I am. You talked about bringing out like the human side of me today. To say I have it all, that's just, it's not true. I think that everybody, yourself, myself, are going through things that people don't know about, struggle with things that people don't know about, and so I don't think I'm qualified to answer that question. I truly don't. I think that there's some things that maybe I do really well, and then some of those things are showcased and highlighted. But again, going back to the podcast and everything, like this is social media stuff, right? You guys are looking at and hearing the best of the best out of me. You're not seeing. I mean, you could interview people in my life that wouldn't speak highly of me. You know, I'm not batting 1,000 with relationships. I'm not batting 1,000 with my team. Not batting 1,000 with the customers that I serve, both insurance and on the recruiting side. So, yeah, I'm still working on that. You know, work in progress. I don't know what to say there. I really don't.
Yeah. Fair enough. I think you're doing great. But no, this was really good. I've had so much fun doing this. I hope you did too. I know it's a little different than your normal podcast, but can you tell everyone how they can, if they're in Michigan or any of the states that you serve, how they can get insurance with you or how they can hire you for recruiting if they're an insurance agent?
Yeah. As far as insurance, if you just Google my name, you'll find an opportunity to request a quote, of course. But recruiting wise, if you just go to autopilotrecruiting.com, so autopilotrecruiting.com, there's a demo video if you're curious to learn more. There's free resources, all that stuff. So you can book a call, you can watch the demo, you can sign up, whatever that is. So if you want to follow me on social media, not super active. Naima does a great job. If you want to follow Autopilot Recruiting on Instagram and Facebook, and if you search for Alex Shattuck on Instagram and Facebook, every once in a while I'll post something. But but one thing other people don't know about me is I'm very much so introverted in nature. I don't, like you mentioned speaking in front of hundreds of people like that. To me, I have to flip a switch to do that. When I'm done, I'm done. I'm done with people for a while. So, yeah, so you won't see me super active on social media. It's not my thing, but you can find me there. Feel free to reach out.
Well, thank you so much. We're definitely going to have you back again in the future, because I in this conversation alone thought of a million more questions to ask you, but I'll give you a break from it. Thank you so much for being on, and we'll see you next time, everyone.